The office door slammed with a force that seemed to shake the fluorescent lights above. "Peek one more time and you're fired," shouted Vanessa, her voice slicing through the quiet hum of the corporate cubicles. Everyone froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. But what no one expected was the calm, unshakable reply that followed. "I won't be peeking, Vanessa. But I'll listen, if you'll let me." The words were soft, steady, almost unreal in their tranquility. And in that instant, something shifted, not just in her, but in the entire office. If you believe in kindness, second chances, or the quiet strength of a good heart, pause for a moment, like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. This story is going to touch something deep inside you. James had been a single father for almost 5 years. After the sudden death of his wife, he had been left with nothing but the daunting task of raising his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, while keeping his small accounting job afloat. His mornings began before sunrise, packing Sophie's lunch, tying her sneakers, and walking her to the bus stop. Evenings were a blur of homework, dinner, and bedtime stories read under the dim glow of a bedside lamp. He was exhausted, often overwhelmed, but he carried it all with a quiet dignity that few noticed. Vanessa, on the other hand, was the kind of boss who thrived on control. Her office was meticulously organized, every paper in its perfect place, every employee under her scrutinizing gaze. She prided herself on efficiency, but there was an edge to her perfectionism, a sharpness that made her team tread lightly around her. That day, James had accidentally glanced at her screen while passing by, a simple human mistake, but one that triggered her fury. She stormed toward him, red-faced and furious, her words cutting like knives in the otherwise silent office. Most employees would have panicked, stuttered an apology, or fled. But James didn't flinch. He looked her straight in the eyes, his voice calm, measured. "I won't be peeking, Vanessa. But I'll listen." It wasn't just a refusal, it was an offer of understanding, an olive branch extended through a storm of anger. The room was silent, stunned by the sheer serenity of his response. Vanessa blinked, her anger momentarily stilled. She had expected fear, guilt, or at least a flustered excuse. What she hadn't expected was this unwavering calm, this quiet authority born not from power, but from love and responsibility. James's life outside those walls was a battlefield, but he had learned to fight without losing himself. And that strength radiated in that moment, breaking through her defenses in a way that no reprimand ever could. It wasn't just about work for James, it was about showing Sophie that life could be hard, yes, but it could also be met with grace. He had faced sleepless nights and tears that never seemed to end, bills that piled up like mountains, and the unbearable ache of a life half empty without his wife. Yet he kept moving forward. Every setback at work, every sharp word from a boss, every challenge that threatened to break him, he met with quiet determination. And slowly, he discovered that sometimes, the gentlest strength could be more disarming than the loudest anger. Vanessa's next words were hesitant, almost lost. "I didn't expect you to say that." Her voice had lost its bite, replaced by confusion, curiosity, and maybe even a hint of shame. James nodded slightly, not triumphantly, but simply, humanly. There was no victory in confrontation, there was only the quiet dignity of doing right, even when no one was watching. Over the next few weeks, something began to change. Vanessa observed James from a distance, noticing how he handled stress, how he treated colleagues, and, occasionally, how he would sneak a quick smile at a photograph of Sophie on his desk. She saw him stay late to help a coworker who was struggling, without complaint. She noticed how he handled mistakes, not by blaming others, not by lashing out, but by calmly seeking solutions. In witnessing his integrity, she began to question her own harshness. Slowly, she softened. Meetings became less tense, instructions less threatening, and the office atmosphere shifted. What had started as an ordinary day of frustration had transformed into a subtle revolution of empathy and respect. James still struggled, life had not become easier, and grief was a constant companion. But the moment in Vanessa's office became a cornerstone for him, a reminder that he could face hostility without mirroring it, that patience and love were not weaknesses, but quiet acts of courage. His life, filled with ordinary battles, was also filled with extraordinary triumphs: Sophie's laughter, the pride of seeing her learn, the small victories that made exhaustion worth it. Weeks later, Vanessa approached him quietly, handing him a new project. "I trust you with this," she said. There was no dramatic apology, no fireworks, just a simple, human recognition of his integrity. James smiled, nodded, and accepted, knowing that the real victory wasn't about proving someone wrong, it was about staying true to oneself, even when the world tried to push you off course. If this story moved you, if James's quiet courage stirred something in your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that even in moments of conflict, kindness and patience can change lives. Before you go, comment below what small act of kindness you've done recently, or one you plan to do. Let's inspire each other to be a little more like James in our own lives. In the end, it's not the loud victories that define us, but the calm, steady courage we show when the world is watching, and when it isn't.